been talking about him all morning. I wanted to introduce you to Tyre. This is Tyre. He remains 14 years young. And we're going to talk about why and how this happened. At the end of the day, this is why we are all here. We are here for Tyre. His parents are here, his siblings, and you, the Tyre Sampson jury, are here to bring justice to the injustice that happened to this family. On March 24th, 2022, Tyre was taken from us in the most violent manner imaginable. He was here visiting Orlando for spring break. He was a great kid, a great athlete, a great person in school, had amazing grades, and he was being rewarded. Come to Orlando, go on amusement park rides. That's what any 14-year-old boy wants to do. And that's what he was doing on this day. He went on to the free fall drop tower. And we know what happened. Funtimes. This is the foreign manufacturer who designed, built, tested, constructed the free fall drop tower in Icon Park. This is a huge corporation. They have rides everywhere. You heard in Wald here all of the states throughout the United States where they have rides. When you look at the international presence, Germany, Canada, Austria, France, Sweden, Denmark, Chile, Spain, Belgium, Norway, Greece, the list goes on and on and on. This is not a small mom and pop company. This company has rides that they have built and constructed and tested everywhere. If you look throughout the United States, it covers the United States coast to coast. This isn't something that just happened here in Orlando. They have rides everywhere. And in fact, we know here in Orlando, they have 3 rides at the same park, at Icon Park. The free fall drop tower, the slingshot, and the Starflyer, all manufactured by Funtimes. When you look at the rides throughout the United States, name your favorite theme park, it's going to be on the list. Six Flags, Dollywood, Magical Midway, Carowinds, Cedar Point, Kings Hill, Old Town. They have rides at every one of those parks that are still operating. And they have a variety of different type of rides. It's not just the drop tower. They have the slingshot, they have the rocket, the bell, the tornado, the skydiver. At the end of this case, you're going to be presented evidence. It's in a box back there. And part of that evidence is the entire website from Funtimes. We printed every page of that website, so you can go through and look at all these different rides that they manufacture. At all of these different rides, again, throughout the entire United States, there's a list in that piece of evidence that goes through every one of their rides, where it is operating, when it first came, and what the name of that ride is. Again, any ride that you can think of, it's going to be on this list. That's how large of a corporation this is. That was the leader in amusement park thrill rides throughout the world. They are supposed to know what they're doing when you have this many rides. The list goes on and on and on. There's too many for me to even put on the screen. And when you look at their website, they advertise. They make sure everybody knows they are the biggest and largest corporation. They talk about the slingshot being 160 kilometers per hour, 150 meters high. The skyfall, 80 meters high. The rocket, this is 100 meters in diameter, and it's a rocket, and it shoots off in a gondola setting. This is their own website. This is what they are talking about. We've all heard the saying, with great power comes great responsibility. Comes grave responsibility. This corporation had all the power. When you build and design and test and construct these many rides throughout the world, that is an enormous amount of power. And when you take on that power, you have the responsibility. You have the responsibility to every person that goes on your rides, to every parent, to every citizen, to juries just like you. We know what Funtime did with that power, or more importantly, what they didn't do. The free fall drop tower. All of you told us in jury selection you're familiar with this ride. You're unfortunately familiar with this tragic case. As you know, this ride took years to build. It stood 430 feet tall. And the way that this ride operated is there was a big tower in the middle, and then there was a number of seats, 30 seats that went in a circle. And those seats, you get onto the ride, you pull down a harness, and that ride slowly starts crawling up. 100 feet, 200 feet, 300 feet, all the way until it gets to the top at 430 feet. When it gets to the top, the ride starts rotating very slowly, 180 degrees. So as you're in that ride, you can see the view of all of downtown Orlando. And then that ride tilts you forward 30 degrees. So now all you see is straight down 430 feet. And it doesn't drop immediately, it waits. And you linger, and you're sitting there staring down until the ride starts falling at over 4 Gs. That is more force than an astronaut feels when the rocket takes off to space. At over 75 miles an hour, the ride starts dropping and plummeting to the ground. You know the one thing this ride didn't have? A seatbelt. They built the largest and tallest drop tower in the world. It's on their own advertisements. In the world. Not in Orlando, not on iDrive, not in Florida, not in the United States, in the world. They built the highest tower, the most dangerous tower. They didn't install a $10 seatbelt. They didn't install a $10 seatbelt for the highest and most dangerous ride in the world. This is what the seats look like before the ride was demolished. They have the harness that comes over your shoulder, no seatbelt. This seatbelt would have connected by the end of the harness to the seat. This would have connected right there between your legs. None of us would be here today. Tyre would be with us. He would never have been able to fall out of that ride. He never would have been able to ride it because the seatbelt wouldn't have fit. This is a video taken by the Department of Agriculture after this incident, and this shows you how the ride operates. As you can see, Bobby, was it playing? Okay. You clicked it, so it's just going down? All right, so the way that this video is, this is after the tragedy. The Florida Department of Agriculture was hired to investigate this tragedy. And so as I told you, the ride goes up into the air, and then you can see it pauses in the air, and then you're going to see it drop. The seats were numbered. So they were numbered seats 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to seat 30. You're going to hear why that's important, because Tyre was directed and told to sit on seat 1. Not seat 3, not seat 15 or seat 28. He was told you need to sit on seat 1. And it's because seats 1 and 2 were manipulated. Seats 1 and 2 had a different type of sensor for, quote, larger people. So if you were a larger person, you had to sit in seats 1 or 2 because they manipulated those seats so that larger people could actually fit in it. We know what happened. March 24th, 2022. I'm going to have to show you some very difficult evidence. And I don't want to do this to Nakia and Yarnell, so we're going to ask that they step out of the room while we review this. Guess what else it has? It has the seatbelt. Another Funtime ride. It has the shoulder harness. It has a seatbelt. Another ride. Seatbelt, seatbelt. Seatbelts on every seat. The pictures and the list go on and on. We talked about this in jury selection. Those of you who ride thrill rides, there are seatbelts on those rides. Every one of these rides on their website. But yet when they choose to build the largest, tallest, most dangerous, no seatbelt. And in their own manual, they say, we don't need a seatbelt because the restraint system is so top of the line, it's so great. Well, is it? That leads us to their second failure, that this restraint mechanism was not top of the line. This harness was not, because they manipulated it. The way these seats work is you pull down this harness over your head. And as you pull it down over your head, it starts getting closer and closer to your body. And then there's a light off to the side that once it is in a place that the engineers have determined is safe enough, the light goes off. And that's when you know that the restraint is in place, that you cannot get out of the ride. For seats 1 and 2, they went in and changed that safety sensor so that when you're pulling down that ride, it stops sooner than it should have. It stops before the engineers and all of the mathematics say is appropriate. Why would Funtime even manufacture a ride that allows that to be adjusted? If you know what the correct mathematical formula is that's going to keep a person in a ride, why would you ever allow that to be adjusted? And it was adjusted. They trained their employees to say, seats 1 and 2 are for larger guests. We want to get more traffic in the door. We want to have as much money as possible. Profits over people. And they trained and told them, sit them here. That's why Tyre sat in seat 1. He was directed to go to seat 1. After this, again, the Florida Department of Agriculture commissioned an independent report. It wasn't our firm's. We're all here together today. Not one of our attorneys paid this engineering firm. Funtime didn't pay them. The Florida government, the Florida Department of Agriculture. And they found that the reason that he fell out of this ride to his death is because this seat was manipulated. This picture says it all. Every other seat had a gap of 3.3 inches between the bottom of the harness to the seat. Tyre's seat had over 7 inches, over double what every other seat had. That's how he fell out of the ride. There was a seatbelt right in that opening. None of us would be here today. This is a side view, as you can see. The seat is not far down enough. This is how he slipped and fell out of the ride. This is how this manufacturer who operates rides all over the United States and the world, this is how they put this safety sensor. This is it. Anybody with a screwdriver can change that. How is that safe? Anybody with a screwdriver can manipulate it to the extent that somebody can fall out of a ride. That is not properly designing or manufacturing or constructing the most dangerous ride you can think of. The Department of Agriculture found the conclusion that Funtime was at fault. Funtime chose not to appear here in the courtroom today. Unlike all of you who took your jury summons and fulfilled your obligations, like we have that one juror in the morning, they threw it in the trash. They didn't want to look at Nakia and look at Yarnell and explain why there was no seatbelt. They didn't want to look at you, our 7 Tyre Sampson jury, and explain why there was no seatbelt. They came to our inspections. We inspected this ride twice over a year apart, and the attorneys were there, the engineers. We have sign-in sheets. They came to both of those inspections, but not the courtroom today. You've heard the judge already give you this instruction twice. You're going to hear it again. It is admitted they are at fault. They are liable. They are negligent for negligently manufacturing, designing, building, constructing, and supervising this ride. So there's only two questions we're going to be asked at the end of this case. The pain and the suffering for Nakia in the past and in the future, and the pain and the suffering and the mental anguish for Yarnell in the past and in the future. How do we determine that? We talked about that in jury selection. Well, you're going to hear from his parents. You're going to hear from his older brother. You're going to hear all about Tyre. We have a stack, probably 4 or 5 inches thick of photographs for you that you'll see in the jury room of the family growing up, what Tyre did. You're going to hear about him as a baby, how he was that baby that just had an absolutely amazing, bubbly personality. As he grew up and was becoming a man, he was an exceptional human being. He was one of a kind. We're going to hear a lot about his football, which was his huge interest, his joy, his pride. But Tyre wasn't just a football player. He was an artist. This is a 14-year-old who is bigger than all of his teachers. And he's in the room drawing and going to science fairs and conducting science experiments, having presentations on Paraguay and history, getting all straight A's and honor roll. And as he got older, he was combining all of his interests. He loved robotics and building and the science and the technology and the mechanics. And yes, he was a superb athlete. You know what? When you ask his parents what his favorite part of being an athlete was the camaraderie. Was being able to have that connection with his friends, was being able to talk to those younger students. He was the biggest kid on there, but he was the most gentle person you will ever meet. You're going to hear about his football career, about his travel teams that he went on, about what his future looked like that Funtimes took away from these two parents. And most importantly was his family. His parents, his older brother, his little sister. That's who Tyre Sampson was. We talked about the power that Funtimes had and what they failed to do. You, as the Tyre Sampson jury, you are going to have the power at the end of the presentations today to render a just verdict for this family. Thank you.